So I'm live. Add a guest. Oops. Pushing buttons here. See this one. Accept. I'm trying. I actually push the accept. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. God.
You can, by the way, call me live. It's okay. Oh. Now the sound went off.
What do you mean it's off?
Now I can hear you. Okay. This is becoming scary, isn't it? Now it's off again. Now again the sound is off.
But now you can't see me. It's
Now,
all sunny.
oh, now I can hear you.
You hear me? All right.
Now.
All right, let's put the phone here. Okay. So people know that we're live now?
That is good. Yes, I think people are informed.
Okay.
So welcome, everyone.
Good to see you live. How's everything?
Things are good. My lovely wife is back from business travel, and the little family here survived days without her. So that was I'm impressed.
Oh, wow. And how's your babysitter? She's back okay?
Sorry?
How is your babysitter? She's back? She's okay?
She's returning next week.
Oh.
So things will be coming back to where there's far more flexibility. You and I can do more of these calls, also on shorter notice if there's something comes up. So things are about to change in a really positive way now. So I'm very happy about it.
That's good.
Yes.
Maybe we want to wait a little bit for some people to join us because I think it's only me and you for now.
Oh, that's okay. There
Maybe.
was someone before. I don't even know where to see it. But...
Wait a minute. I'm gonna just invite a few of the guys to join us. They want.
Ah, it's like you push that button there, and then they're invited.
Invites like that. You do it like that.
There is two faces and then plus. Is that where you invite people? Or?
Oh yeah, that's how I did it.
Or is that putting them into the live call?
No. I don't think that's. No, here it appeared share this video so others can watch. So I guess I got the notification. But we can just start if you want.
Sure. Let's go ahead.
Let's go ahead. Okay, so it's really great to talk about this topic of emotional manipulation today because so many people have questions and are concerned in that area because obviously when they meet someone, when they enter a new relationship or even in a long-term relationship, they want to feel safe, loved, appreciated for who they authentically are. And sometimes they realize after a while, mostly not immediately, that they're not really appreciated for who they actually are, and realize that maybe they're undergoing certain tactics or patterns in their relationship with their person that make them feel unsafe and insecure. Um, I believe we both have had examples on our side similar to that certain topic, even as coaches or friends of people, family members, etc. So we know about this topic obviously very personally, and we're both very empathetic individuals. So a lot of people would approach us because they want to talk about these things with their people. And so I would like to know, from your perspective, how do you feel about the topic of emotional manipulation, and how would you actually define it?
Well, defining it is in the sense that someone is using different techniques or ways of communicating to make you do something you don't really want to do. That in some cases can be sort of useful, in a sense it pushes you to go for that extra run or try a new diet that helps you, something like that. That's not what we're talking about though. It is something where only the other person has an advantage, and they're using the skills they have to make you give up on things that mean something to you so that they get a better result. It's never for you. You don't have a positive effect of it. They do. So does that make sense? Is that useful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When you say advantage, how would you define that sort of advantage? Would they take your resources? And if so, what kind of resources would they tap into?
It's normally like a sliding thing. If their first comment when you meet someone is that they tell you stop having contact with your family and friends, you would just say, you're an idiot, I'm not going to do that. So it typically doesn't start like that. It starts out often very friendly, very convincing, very charming, very inviting, quite fascinating actually. And you might think, oh my God, I found the amazing one. Unfortunately, often it's just a skill set of another level of manipulation they're using. And then bit by bit, they might say, like, that was a weird thing your father said there or your mother said there. Are they always like that? If that person had a little bit of a question to the new person in your life, they will typically slowly start putting like a wedge in between you and your social support. Right? So it happens in small steps, often so small you don't notice until you're quite deep into it.
Yeah. Have you heard about mirroring? And do you know what it is?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. Have you heard about mirroring? Is that one form of manipulation? Is that what they would typically do as a technique of manipulation? And if yes, what does it look like? What do you think it looks like? Mirroring someone?
I just want to make sure that there's more than one version of mirroring. Do you mean that where they are acting in a way that it seems like you're mirroring each other? Is that?
When they study you over a certain amount of time, let's say the first 1 or 2 months, and they would to get to know you and analyze you very profoundly, and then start using your way of articulating, talking, the tone of your voice, but even sometimes the way you dress in the first period of time, make you feel really comfortable and familiar in order to create this certain bond in the initial phase. And you would, without knowing, see them as your own mirror. Have you heard about that?
Yes. I just wanted to make sure it was one.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, and it's clearly something that's done, and it is surprisingly effective for creating the experience is the right word, that you are aligned.
Okay.
It creates like this feeling of, oh wow, they really understand me. We're on the same wavelength and stuff. It's very, very convincing. And as the best of my understanding, it actually creates a synchronization of the brainwave. There was a study put out recently. And this is also what happens when good friends are interacting. So the emotional reaction we have is typically one of, oh, wow, this is fantastic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So it's clearly a technique used by them. It is, however, also a technique that we use just to communicate. So it's not, if someone is doing that, that there's a bad intent, but pay attention to it.
Do you think that mirroring could happen between friends as a very natural practice?
Yes.
But if it is used in or by someone who tries to manipulate, it can be very threatening and toxic in the long run, because what I want to come to later is the question is, why are they using this type of mirroring technique later their partner, right?
Yes.
So before we get into that, maybe we want to define generally, how does emotional manipulation typically begin? You already mentioned it. It comes very in tiny doses, very, very subtle. So you wouldn't even understand in the beginning, because you start falling in love with this person, for example, if it's your partner. You appreciate them for who they are. You feel very close and familiar with them. And then shortly after, they understand that now this relationship is very serious for you. They would start implementing in tiny and small doses negativity into the relationship in order to very shortly and in short intervals, like small lightning bombs or something, to destabilize you. How would you define this short moment of destabilization, especially for the person who is on the receiving end of these bombs?
Well, one of the ways, of course, there are multiple, but one of the ways is that if a situation comes up where you have been slightly less than perfect, and they use that situation to lower your value, self-worth, to make you doubt a little bit, oh, that wasn't good. And what they often do is then play the game, yes, you're not quite perfect. I, of the gracious of my heart, forgive you for that. You still welcome you. Does it make sense? You're now dependent on their approval.
Okay. So how would that affect the person who's obviously not perfect in that moment, because they understand they made a mistake in that certain situation? They did not cater to the needs of their partner in a specific situation. For example, I don't know, they didn't cook the meal in the right way, or they didn't pick up, I don't know, their laundry or something like that, and they were late or whatever. So
it can be almost anything. That's
the craziest, most unnecessary thing. But
yes.
the partner understand that in that situation, they've not been perfect to their own ideal. And so they would feel inferior in that moment.
Yes,
okay?
Like a little bit less compared to the other one.
Compared to the other one, because the other one is always the one on the pedestal, of the one that is going to be glorified, or how is that, how a balance between those two in that couple then afterwards, after a while? Because one, the person that's going to be admired in the relationship, and the other person would be always the certain individual that has to satisfy their needs. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand something?
In that sense, you become whoever, become a little bit of if this is the person we're talking about, and this is the manipulator, it becomes a little bit of like this. You're left with them and hoping for their approval. You are a little bit dependent on them for for being allowed to think I am okay. Like, I as a human being am okay. You're a little bit dependent on them, their approval, and they keep increasing this difference. You become more and more dependent.
Okay. So when you talk about approval, you mean one of them is never good enough, and it will be very hard for them to achieve that level where they can become good enough again as they were at the beginning phase when they were mirroring each other and everything was neutral and perfect and in balance. And one love bombing phase and mirroring phase is over. Is this imbalance that you just described something perfect?
It typically is. What is often thrown in as a technique in that sense is to give you short moments of feeling really wonderful, like you are fantastic. So this balance is suddenly like, wow, you're amazing. Because this builds in this desire to, it actually makes sense to please the other person, because then they see me as this fantastic and you feel the love and stuff and so on. But it'll swap back.
Okay.
This creates this ongoing hope and desire. Please give me that back. Does it make sense? Like you gave them something of value and they decide when you get it.
Right. So from your experience as a coach, what's the purpose of these short moments of perfection?
To keep you hooked.
Okay. Because if they wouldn't incentivize these moments, you wouldn't feel bonded and you wouldn't feel hooked in the relationship. There's a risk of you to drop out. So they need to temporarily you with moments of glorification, correct?
Yes.
And this is also always for the purpose of keeping you hooked in the relationship so you cannot break out, and you will always be remembered in your own mind that actually these amazing moments of perfections are the dominant ones and not the moments of imbalance.
This is what I can't always say it's a deliberate, conscious tactic. Sometimes it's just what they do without necessarily thinking about it. But there seems to be a driving negative element of it, is that if they every now and then make you feel fantastic and you're the most amazing human being and stuff and so on, that feels quite wonderful. But you want more of that. And then they take it away from you. So you'll keep running towards it. You give it a little bit, just enough that you keep chasing it. Not enough that you're ever actually filled up, that you feel true value based on the other person's reaction.
Yeah, and do you think that could be a drug for more, like on a chemical level and even on a brain level, for people to all want to have this rash of dopamine? What would it be? That rush of excitement, that rush of oxytocin even. I don't know what kind of hormones would come up in such a situation. It must have also a reaction in the body and in the mind, right?
Very much so. Yeah. We are very much driven by the hormones in our body that rewards things and punishes things, that it feels bad to do this, or it's fantastic to do that, and so on. So yes, it definitely hijacks our reward system in our mind. And we are chasing something, hoping to be loved, to be accepted, or whatever it is. And they keep playing this game long enough that maybe you forget, or maybe you were never even told that these hormones are something we create ourselves inside.
So I don't think everybody understands what we were just saying about the reward system, because it's a little far away from them if they haven't studied it. How do you hear me now? Yeah, saying for people who've not studied it and who've not heard about it before, how does it actually work with the reward system in the body and mind?
But maybe if I make it as simple as possible, in the sense of if you do something that makes you feel really good,
Yeah.
whatever the hormones are, we can put that aside for a moment. You do something that makes you feel really good, there's a tendency you want to have that experience again. As shortly described as possible.
Okay.
That can be highly addictive. That can be drugs, sex, all kinds of food or dubious behavior or something like that. If it gives you a big enough kick, there's a tendency you want to do it again. Does that make sense?
Especially, I think this comes in especially in situations where the difference between the high and the low is so incredibly big. It creates a
brilliant point. Yes, yeah.
Put you in an emotional situation that puts you that much down that the difference between the high and the perfection and the lowest low is so incredible that the effect of the drug becomes more effective.
Yes.
So when they put you in the lowest low, they know that when the next day, or even sometimes they do it within the same day, it could change on every 2 hours. I've seen things that were really, really rapid. And they've told me about this, that they would see or have partners where their mood swings would really, really dramatically change even within the same day. And if you're bonded to them, it obviously would affect you very much. Sure. And so
if you have a little bit the sensation, because they have primed you for that, if you have the sensation, it's my fault when they feel bad. Mm-hmm. You see how this is just another trick they're playing?
That's really, really bad. And so you would be a partner then, as an emotional, let's say, dependent partner, as the empath in that situation, the opposite of the manipulator. You would permanently walk on eggshells, which means you would try to navigate around their moods to always satisfy and cater to their needs, because you want to avoid their mood swings. But what you don't know is that they're using their mood swings and their negativity in order to keep the drug levels out of balance. So you would permanently swing from up and down and into a fight and flight mode. Would you like to explain that to me?
Sure. One of the basic drivers of the system for human beings to survive is, in case something happens dangerously, we have a deep reaction in the sense of we either want to fight it, like if it's an animal coming, we may have to fight, or run, which is get away, this is the flight, or freeze, in the sense if I stand still and don't do anything, maybe it doesn't notice me. There's also something called fawning in there, but I'll just stay with the three for now, because these are deeply rooted reactions in us. And if suddenly the one we love so much is in a very bad mood, and we have experienced, now the love is disappearing and so on, fighting against one that does that typically has really bad results. So we would rather flight, like pull away, or try to be as quiet as possible.
Yeah.
With eggshells.
Yeah.
Right. So these are deeply embedded systems, and it's not that we have an enormous variability in it's a little bit one or a little bit another. It's not that it's full out fight all the time. There are levels to it, but it's typically either fighting, freezing, or pulling away from it, running away. But sometimes, especially in a relationship, where can you run?
Wow, that's terrible. So you would permanently put yourself or your body into a mode where you constantly produce a lot of stress hormones, a lot of cortisol. If you have ever experienced that, how would that make you feel during your daily life, when you have to be operative, when you have to go to work, when you have to take care of your children, etc., and your body is producing cortisol on a really extreme level that can affect your overall health in the long term. It can affect your brain. people can honestly become depressed, and many more other things can really turn out bad for them. So I'm sure you've heard about the overproduction of cortisol, but the long-term damage of it is incredible. How would you explain that? The production of stress hormones and cortisol and whatever else comes up in the long term, what does it do to people's minds?
Well, first of all, it throws you completely off. Humans are generally what's called homeostatic, meaning balance seeking, especially in our hormones.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that it has to be balanced all the time. We can go and work and produce and stuff, and then we should relax, recover, right? But recovery is very, very difficult if you do not feel safe. And with high levels of cortisol running in the system, like stress hormone, with a partner where you're on eggshells and you always have to watch out, you're nervous, stressed all the time. And therefore, you are barely getting by. It at the same time explains when people from outside that relationship have a little bit of an idea of what's going on, and the outsider doesn't understand, why don't you just leave? And the other person is barely surviving, just hanging in there. This is when it's further advanced manipulation, right?
Well, there's another point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you were just saying, why don't you just leave? The emotional...
Not that I mean that, I understand it differently, but when someone from the outside says it.
Yeah. I'm saying feedback from the outside, people coming in who would just say, when they hear your stories, when you keep on complaining how mad you're treated, etc., how terrible the relationship is, people would just say, okay, if it's that bad, I think you should leave. But it's really, really hard for you to leave because you're that much stuck in a trauma bond. Being bonded to that person because of the drugs that you're producing, the hormones that you produce in your body, makes you bond to that person, and will make it very, very hard for you to escape or to really release yourself. And also, especially, you're not only bonded on an emotional and mental level, but it can be other factors as well. You know, being in a relationship entails a lot of other things where you cannot just quit from one day to another. So you try to solutions to stay in and cope with the situation. So people would come, okay, just leave and quit, you know, don't stay in that relationship. However, oftentimes the emotional manipulator is very intelligent and keeps the manipulation to the four walls, inside of the four walls, where nothing of manipulation comes to the outside. Whereas in relationships where the partner is being physically abused, you can see the physical abuse more of the time. You will see bruises, right? In a situation, however, where there is emotional manipulation, it is very hard to identify the abuse. It would happen at a very subtle level, just between the two people. There we have things such as gaslighting, great talking, love bombing, alternated with even removing themselves, etc.
Yeah, that's a big one as well. One of those very hideous tricks that is often played is in the middle of this where it feels so bad and others might ask, why don't you just leave? You might be there thinking, but it's my fault that they
as well
are reacting like that. Yes. So you have done something horrible because they have told you that several times. And at some point you might start believing it. So if you're now leaving, you're the bad one.
Exactly. And also to believe, you're made to believe that the person is always better than you. Ironic, because they found ways how to make you feel inferior.
Yes. It's a hideous game. I'm very much against it. I'm happy I've spent time to figure out how to deal with it, how to avoid it and stay out of it and help others out of it, because it's going on a lot. And it's not just in relationships. It happens other places as well.
Yeah, it could happen at work.
Oh yes, manipulating bosses is a well-known phenomenon, or co-workers, right?
A lot. So when um, you would meet someone, when somebody would meet a new person, a new partner, potential partner, uh, what would you think could be the initial red flags for them to understand they might be dealing with someone who could potentially be someone who has a tendency to manipulate? Are there red flags that we could identify right away and say, okay, gotta be a little bit careful, try to, look at the situation a little bit more in detail before you really let your guard down and put yourself completely into, the relationship with your heart?
Sure. There are some extreme cases, and many people would be able to kind of recognize that if they are abusive or drug addicts, alcoholics and stuff. And just leave that aside a little bit. There is an area where it's a bit more challenging to figure out what exactly is going on. And that is maybe they say, oh, my ex was so bad and this and stuff, and they keep telling you this story about how bad they are and kind of implying you are much better.
Yeah, that's a good point. When they initially start talking about their exes right away and how crazy they were, right? Is that a red flag?
It can be. I'm very careful with these black and white statements, in a sense. I know on my first date with my now wife, I clearly fell in love with her in that moment. It was like, oh wow, this is extraordinary. And there are people who say, oh, if someone falls in love and the first date, it's a red flag. That exists out there. And we've been married for 10 years and truly happy. You have 2 kids and things are wonderful. So that's why I'm a little bit careful with the very black and the very white statements, like this is one thing or the other. It's of use to know what's important to you. Like, for instance, for me, loyalty is one. And then as gently as possible, without putting words into your date's mouth, let them answer what they think about a situation where loyalty would be coming. So they kind of freely speak about it, and you kind of pretending it's not that important to you. I'm not saying you should lie, but you just mention it like a side thing and let them talk. And if you already there notice, they like to have open relationship or something, and maybe that's your thing, right? Not yours, but other people saying, yeah, that's fine, but then it's not mine. I want to be with one woman and give all my focus to her and love. But if on a date the other person implies, oh, I like the idea of open relationship and moving around, and you know that's not for me, you don't need any more information. You don't need to give them a chance to manipulate you anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It all makes sense what you say. How would you feel about somebody saying, I love you after a week or two?
I kind of like the idea. I'm a romantic.
I thought it, but please tell me you have not said it.
Probably when I was younger or something. But let's say with my wife, I definitely felt it.
Yeah.
It was clearly there.
No. I kind of felt it, but I would say if somebody told me that after 2 weeks, I'd be really surprised. I would say, okay, it's a bit early, 2 weeks.
Like
we don't.
it's a bit early. Yeah, but again, I don't want to dismiss it completely, because one thing is that the experience I have, I just didn't verbalize it. But another thing is, it might actually, like it was my wife, be this really, really good match. It just it just feels like that. What we decided to do, and I think that's useful for many people, was to spend time together. And we actually moved in together fairly quickly, like 4 or 5 months or something.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, and live together before making the big next step in our relationship was then asking her to marry me.
Oh.
And we said yes. So there is maybe also the advantage that a little bit older in that sense, we'd had our experiences and so on. And realizing that in the beginning phase, it's like, wow, it's fantastic. And what that is just chemistry in your body exploding. And it can do that, but it can also go away.
You've got this beautiful love story going on, and I just briefly want to ask you a question, but obviously if you feel uncomfortable replying and giving us an answer. But it's a beautiful example because you were just mentioning this amazing connection and these butterflies and so on, which is obviously a beautiful side component of being in love with someone, you know. And obviously it was like love at first sight, etc. And when things get more normal, okay, let's say you move in together, you start having this kind of routine and daily life together in a healthy relationship, as you're in right now at the moment, still after years and children and everything. How does that balance out after a while? You know, because the hormones change, obviously, but still there is the beauty of being together and the harmony of being together, which is being supported and maybe even replaced by a more profound feeling, which is love. Because before it was like excitement and feeling in love, which is a little bit different than creating that profound bond and the love between two people. So if you compare these two phases, how would you explain the healthy path of a relationship? The ideal scenario, if we could take your example.
The ideal scenario, yeah. It was really wonderful. So, okay, we can follow that one. I think it helped a lot to have the awareness that the starting phase is all these emotions, and spending time away from each other seems stupid. Why would you do that? You want to spend every moment all the time.
Yeah.
So in that sense, from maybe I can jump to the hormones in that sense. In the beginning, it's a lot of driven by dopamine, which is more than just reward. It's also a drive. Dopamine's driving system to make you want to go do things, to be with her, to do things with her, to stuff and so on. And other elements are mixed in. After a while, there are a group of hormones more generally referred to as here and now hormones, which is more like serotonin and other things, endorphins, which is a base feeling of I enjoy this.
Yeah, of course. And also I think the awareness that you're in a safe place.
Yes, that's also you probably would notice if you don't feel safe, right? I would say that. For me, again, the experience of feeling safe is again hormones in the system, but it fulfills some criteria for when you feel safe. And there's a difference between being safe and feeling safe. Because we live in Switzerland, you're generally safe all the time on a general level, right? And nothing bad happens if you move around here and stuff. But you may not feel safe because people in your life are reacting weirdly, you have to walk on eggshells and so on. If that's the experience, you don't feel safe in the relationship, it's probably not the right place, or at least you need to change something.
Cool. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And just to close off with these red flags, for people who might be interested in hearing more about that, do you think that when you're with someone who is trying to get to know you very profoundly and asks you a lot of questions about your history, even about your ex-partners, about all your stories. Sometimes they want to know everything about your past life, etc. But by doing all these, questionnaires, they forget opening up about themselves. So they mainly focus on you, and you feel like all of a sudden, oh my God, you're so important. They want to know everything about me. And you misunderstand that they've never really told you anything about themselves, really.
Right.
So in that initial phase, when they try to analyze you and bombard you with a lot of questions in order to know you, is that a red flag in combination when they forget to open up about themselves? Of course, in the initial phase, it's very normal that somebody has to, get to the other person. So obviously you would ask a lot of questions, etc. But if it becomes uncomfortable in a way that, okay, they are asking me these things again and again, but I don't feel comfortable replying to all that, maybe I just want to tell them all the details. So please stay away, if I feel ready to tell you.
Yeah.
Could that
Your body language shows it quite beautifully. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's not like we're hiding all the skeletons in the cupboard, but sometimes you don't want to share your most vulnerable moments. And I think it would make me feel much more safe if there was time for me to open up for when I'm ready, because I want to feel safe to share my experience with them. It's not like an open book and I can tell you everything about every year of my life. No, you want to wait, because what manipulators typically do as well, they study your vulnerabilities so
They're
they
looking
know
for them.
what they can use against you.
Yes.
Is that correct? Do you have something to add to that in that sense?
That's what they're doing. Yes. I would add something to that, which was quite interesting. I was looking into relationships, how to build wonderful friendships, and so on. Actually, did a couple of I call them fun shops, not workshops, showing people how to do these things. And one of the things I found was, I think it's a psychologist from New York who had put together 36 questions to fall in love. And it built up in the way, it starts out very superficial, like shallow, in the sense of if you could like have a dinner with whoever celebrity you want, who would it be? And then one person asks the other person answers. Then that question goes back, and that's actually the point. It goes back to the first person, and they answer. Then you ask a question which is a little bit deeper. You go deeper, but you keep changing. And you just describe, they interrogate you, and they don't give anything back. That's the difference.
That makes sense. Yeah. So could we identify that as a potential red flag in that case?
Yes, they could be over-eager. They could have very limited social skills, so they're nervous. And I've actually had, it wasn't a dating scenario, but a woman who attended an event, and she was really, really trying to fit in and meet friends and stuff. And she was talking to me because I'm the leader of it. And she was insulting me with every single comment. She said, but I saw behind that was a nervous woman trying to make friends, trying to connect, but she just didn't know how. So I never met any, sorry?
What a weird way to make friends.
Oh, yeah. No, it was just, for me, it was just, she didn't have the skills. And I don't really judge people if they don't have the skills.
Wow.
In that sense, they can be learned. Right? And I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I happened to saw a Facebook post that she got married and had a child. And so I was very happy. So she found some of her happiness, I'm hoping. And so I just want to distinguish that part. Some people haven't developed the skill set of social interaction. So they may be nervous. They are asking a lot of questions or saying very weird things. It's not necessarily a red flag. It can be an indicator. They simply don't have the skills yet. They can be learned. If, however, you on your side mostly have the experience of, I'm being interrogated here, that I would take a step back from.
And here I would like, thank you for saying that. And here I would like to add that that's a good point where we can actually listen to our intuition And I'm learning that more and more in my personal life, but also, in my encounters in general with other people, friends, and decision making, etc. How do you feel about a certain specific situation? What is the situation telling you? Your body has a reaction because of a certain feeling and frequency it is sensing in that certain moment. Your intuition is an extreme good indicator for how you feel and how you should react towards red flags, because oftentimes your emotions and the sensations, and what I last time I said was it the tingling feeling that I sometimes feel when encountering some certain individuals or even situations. Your body's to tell you in advance something is not totally right. Your logic is telling you, oh, everything's fine, everything's good, go ahead, no problem, go for it, this decision is correct. But actually, your intuition has already tried to explain to you that you should probably not go for it. So at this point, I'd like to add again to that little point here that strengthen your intuition is very recommended, okay? And we can do that by calming down our nervous system. How do we do that? In order to be very present in our lives, engaging in not manipulation, but meditation, you know, spiritual techniques, and becoming really, aware of our own feelings and our environment, and sometimes even to detox. Would you like to give an example of what detoxing could be like? I don't know, something.
Yes, that was again one with my now wife. I had ended a relationship, and I spent 5 months just talking with people, meeting people, and so on. I went on some dates, but I deliberately told them before, it's not a date. So I shouldn't have said date. I went out with women or something like that. Simply because I would like to have conversations, learn and improve and so on. And I didn't kiss anyone, no sex or anything. It was just me wanting to normalize the experience of being around women. Does that make sense? Like detoxing a little bit.
Great thing to do, honestly. Yeah. Go ahead.
And when it was about, that's the funny thing here, I'm very connected with music. Not all music, but music often has a very strong effect on me. And the relationship I had ended, there was some pieces of music that really drew me in thinking of that relationship and so on. And this had this emotional effect on me. And I, in these 5 months, several times deliberately took that music and played it and just allowed my feelings to move. In the beginning, it could be quite sad because it's not there anymore, even though I ended it. But it could also be, there were happy moments and stuff. And so like this swinging up and down. But over time, it leveled out. So the emotion became more or less neutral. There was no pull.
Can I say?
Yeah.
That's a really good exercise. And what you did there on purpose, I believe, was to accept and absorb the emotion and create a certain awareness around it. Maybe from the outside, even looking at yourself from the outside and understand how you felt in that moment, and to allow even the feeling of grief, even, getting out of
sadness, but also joy, because there were also good moments, right?
Right, a mix of emotions, but I'm trying to understand what is actually happening to yourself, and that's a really good exercise, I guess, because you were not pushing it away. No. You wanted to be confronted with it, and in the moment of being confronted with it, you, I believe, took away the effect and the importance of it, and you calmed it down in a way. Is that what you did?
You can say it. I wouldn't necessarily say confront it. I would more say be in it. Be in that experience that the music pulled back from my memory and placed me in that situation and allow it to pass through. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I do kind of exercises in different circumstances, allowing emotions to come up rather than pushing them away. I do that in my meditations. I do that in my visualizations and so on and so forth, in order to understand where I stand with my emotions, because it's very important to start the process of detoxing rather than always pushing the poison out of your body in a very forceful way. To deal with, to understand where you are with your emotions is much healthier than trying to make it disappear by not addressing it. That was very, very efficient in that sense.
The process I went through, it wasn't actually that I said I will do this for 5 months. I just started listening to music because I knew it had this effect, let it do that on the emotional experience on it. And at some point I just felt, oh, I'm free, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much that evening that I then, there you go, wifey. So I was like, I want you.
Our problem, humans' problem is mostly we want things to go away right away. We're very impatient with our own emotions. We think, okay, this is a very uncomfortable feeling, the feeling of loss or grief after relationship. And that's why it's very hard for people even to get out of toxic relationships, because they believe they're in there forever. And it's hard to get out because the feeling of the loss in the moment seems unbearable. But they need to understand that it is more unbearable to stay in an unsafe relationship than being alone but safe. So overcome that dilemma of being in a toxic, unsafe relationship from being free again, but healthy in a safe space. You need to overcome this certain amount of time that is uncomfortable. And you can only do that by being in the emotion and not push it away.
Yes, there are individual balances to be found. My mother once told me a story when she was a young girl, a young woman. She was in love with someone, and they were together for a little while, and then they broke it off, and she was very sad. So she was crying every day for 3 months.
Wow.
That's a lot. And then at these 3 months, she suddenly remembered one day that, oh, I forgot to cry today. So she started crying, and then she stopped. It's like, this is stupid. This has just become a habit of feeling sad about the loss of this. And then she said, pretty much in that moment, she stopped crying about it, not because she forced it away, but she realized, wait a minute, this is not grieving the loss of that relationship. It's become like a bad habit. Do you understand what I mean in that sense?
Yeah.
Sometimes we train ourselves to feel bad about something, and there's a lot more useful things to be found in training ourselves to feel good, to feel confidence, to feel positive, to move towards something like a drive. And every now and then bad things happen. Okay, it's okay to feel bad for a while. It just shouldn't become a habit. Did I explain that okay?
Correct. Women don't have a problem with feeling bad for a short period of time. We share our emotions with our friends, no problem. We can cry on the phone, etc. We even overshare. It's harder for men because they, first of all, don't want to or can't really share their emotions with other friends or etc. But they don't want to even share it with themselves, so they keep it inside of themselves, hiding. But creating a technique in order to really let it to deal with it and understand that it's part of the process, I think it's a very, very healthy thing to do. And it won't take forever, a period of grief for long, but for a week or two might happen. It's okay to deal with it, to address it. We're all human beings, and that has to be said as well.
Yeah, and it's the grieving, or what we want to call it, is individual. There's typically a phase where it's like everything is bad for a little while, and then at some point, it's useful to start moving on. There are lots of techniques that you can do this with. Typically, if people come to me and they're very sad about something that ended and stuff, I'll ask, when was it? Like, how recent is this breakup or divorce or whatever it is? And if they go like a week or two, I'm like, it's okay to feel sad.
Yeah.
Right? The question is how sad. The question is how long. Because there is a process also from the hormones of just flushing out the things that make you feel bad and readjust, find this homeostatic balance again, where you can function quite well when it just might be off. And it takes a little bit to get it there, right? And every human being reacts differently. It's different what it takes for them. Putting a specific time horizon on it, not overly useful. For my mother, apparently these 3 months was one day too long. And it's different, right? For me, it was 5 months, but in many ways, I felt good quite quickly and just allowed it to completely balance itself out, so that I knew for a fact that I was free and open for a new relationship, emotionally available.
Absolutely, yeah. So to close our beautiful live of today, I would just like to say that whenever we come across situations where we feel we're involved with some sort of emotional manipulation, we need to look inside of ourselves first, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who allow this situation to happen. And there is a need for us to understand why we react in a certain way, or even why we address or attract that certain kind of personality or character into our lives. So when we look at it,
May I say something to that? One of the things, I completely agree with what you're saying. I just notice the state of mind people are in when they realize they are in like an abusive relationship and so on. They're not really ready to carry the burden of it's my fault.
exactly.
It could be more useful to say, you can do something to change it, and I can help you change it. It's just this little difference, because otherwise they feel like, oh, it's all a failure and it's my fault. It's a heavy one, right? I would rather do the step. You have been so smart, you have realized you're in a bad situation. Okay, what can we do to change it? Does that explain it? Okay.
That's exactly the sense behind it, and the great point behind it. If we understand that we might, be in a situation where we're not exactly in tune and satisfied and feeling uncomfortable in a certain way, we need to just look behind the surface and understand why actually are we in this situation. Is there something that we can improve about ourselves?
Right.
Is there something we want to address within ourselves first? Try to repair the inside a little bit, work on our own health first, emotional and mental health a little bit, talk to professionals, talk to friends before we want to continue seeing someone that is potentially manipulative with us. So
Yes.
I'll let you talk in a minute.
Okay.
Even for those who currently are believing to be in a particular relationship, please do not hide. If you feel the need to speak to someone, please do so. Remember that you're never alone, and also remember that there's always a way out of it, no matter how hard and difficult it appears at this very moment. Okay.
One of the first things I tell people, I sometimes see some of these internet groups where people they say their partner is a narcissistic or it's toxic or things like that. And some people just say, set up boundaries and so on. And my first question is, are you safe to do that?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can get really, really bad if they set boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
It can be better that the first thing to do, like each of us, if you find yourself in a situation like that, evaluate, am I safe to set up boundaries? Am I safe to talk to a friend if I can leave the relationship? Because you might not be. And then maybe you should get the police involved or things like that. Sometimes it can be really bad. The challenge is sometimes these manipulators, they separate us from our social support net, from our family, from our friends, and so on. And you end up being alone.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's the moment where it's really, really useful to think, what can I safely do to improve my situation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that would be the first step. Am I safe?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Needs to talk, shoot us a message. Life and I were always there to listen to you, and you know where to find us. It was great having this amazing call with you. It was super interesting, and I learned a lot, obviously, as always, when talking to you. And I hope our listeners also had good fun with us.
Yeah, that would be, I hope so. Love that. And can take something useful from it, please do. But also very much feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to answer it. I do take the time to answer everyone. So yeah, feel free to write, comment, share if some of this gives you value, share it with other people. So yeah, happy to do my part and help.
Yeah, me as well. Okay, be healthy and safe, everyone.
Sure.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, ciao, ciao. Thank you.